Hi, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about the debate in the House of Lords on the healthcare bill, where Baroness Nicholson and Lord David Blencathra moved amendments 297F and 297G, which were all about protecting single-sex spaces on hospital wards and preventing the labelling of women who objected to males in their spaces as transphobic. So today is the day we're looking at Lord Blencathra's speech in support of this motion. And I'm not going to play favourites, but he's totally my favourite. So I'm just going to say he's top three. He's top three. Because obviously there are other lords and baronesses in the House of Lords who are also fantastic. But let's just listen to what Lord Blencathra had to say.
My Lord, I rise to support the amendments in the name of my noble friend the Baroness Nicholson of Winterbourne and myself. And I pay tribute to her for raising this issue of vital importance to women and for being their champion over many years in the face of some bitter attacks from a minority of some trans zealots. And I must say to the noble Baroness Brinton, I resent the implication that somehow we're attacking trans people by these amendments. There is no conspiracy against them. We want equal treatment for everyone in the NHS. And if there's any conspiracy, it seems to be to demean the status of women. And I also say to the noble Baroness that yes, if these amendments were accepted, NHS policy would have to change. NHS policy would have to change to comply with the law of the land, the Equalities Act 2010, because it is in breach of the exemptions in that Act at the moment. Now, my lords, as we all know, there's no real privacy in hospitals, however hard they may try. If one ties that funny gown the wrong way, like a dressing gown, then one's front is exposed. If one ties it properly, then the rear is exposed. Even when one is recovering and wearing pyjamas or female attire, bed attire, it's impossible in a hospital to carry out the routine of getting into and out of bed and using the washing and other facilities without some part of one's anatomy being exposed. Many patients neglect to close or lock washroom doors, and some with mental health problems may express sexual disinhibition. And of course, when doctors come round and pull the screens round, there's still the discussion of one's condition and the medical profession's obsession with bowel movements, as we all know about. Now, my lords, I'm old enough and ugly enough not to care what medical professionals see what parts of my body. They've all poked and prodded and cut out various bits of it over the years, so I'm reasonably immune to embarrassment with them. However, I would find it highly embarrassing if I found a woman or a man declaring as a woman in the next bed and encountered her in the ablutions. Of course, it's highly unlikely that I would meet a woman, since there are an infinitesimally small number of women identifying as men, but many more men identifying as women. All my life, my lords, there has been an NHS policy of single-sex wards, and governments of all colours have been slammed on those occasions when men and women were sharing hospital accommodation. The policy is that patients should not have to share sleeping accommodation, nor toilet nor bathroom facilities with members of the opposite sex. My word, the operative word is sex. Biological sex, not gender. And since we're speaking about women and sex in hospitals, can I put some astonishing medical information on the public record, which has resulted in some women being sacked or abused for saying it, and I stand to be corrected by medical experts present. My lords, I believe that only women can give birth to children, since only women have wombs. No matter what one declares one's gender to be, only men get prostate and testicular cancer. Only women can breastfeed their children, and men who have chests cannot. The sex of babies is not assigned at birth. Babies are born as boys or girls, and that includes those born with those rare congenital disorders of sexual development. So no one decides to assign male or female to a baby. They're born that way. And so that is why the term sex assigned at birth is so offensive. Now, of course, my lords, in the course of daily life, working in most jobs, going to the pub, etc., sex and gender don't matter, and one can call oneself what one likes. But when it comes to medical treatment, there are two vital factors which can determine the diagnosis and the treatment, and these factors are age and sex. Sex is the only thing which matters medically, not gender, and that has always been the case until the mistaken guidance issued in December 2019. The NHS always recognised that single-sex accommodation was not only essential for a patient's privacy and dignity, but also for their treatment and recovery. Doctors recognise that patients in distress, for whatever reason, cannot recover as easily as those who are comfortable in their surroundings and who are not fearful of people of the opposite sex seeing their bodies at a time when they're at their most vulnerable. That is why the NHS guidance stated in absolutely unambiguous terms, quote, "There are no exceptions from the need to provide high standards of privacy and dignity at all times," unquote. As my noble friends have pointed out, it all went haywire in the Annexe B of the guidance, which failed to implement the Equality Act of 2010 and said that trans people should be accommodated according to their self-identification, which the guidance say, quote, "may not always accord with the physical sex appearance of the chest or genitalia," unquote. It also goes on to say, the pre-operative trans people should not share open shower facilities. Well, my lords, I'm sure that Jewish or Muslim women find that immensely reassuring, that can be in a shower with a man so long as he had some operation on his genitalia. Now, this is the advice I've had, my lords, from an expert, a Jewish expert in medical ethics. It says, the religious requirements of Orthodox Judaism mandate single-sex facilities both for men and for women, where people are likely to be in a state of even partial undress. This includes the requirement for single-sex hospital wards, bathrooms and changing rooms. The distress, both psychological and spiritual, that is likely to be caused to Orthodox Jews if they're forced to share facilities with members of the opposite sex is considerable, as is the impact on the patient's family. Orthodox Jews are, of course, protected under the Equality Act on the basis of their religious belief. It would be wholly unacceptable were an Orthodox Jewish woman to be counselled by NHS staff into accepting the presence in the bed next to hers of a male patient who identifies as transgender. My lords, that's the advice I've received on Orthodox Judaism. I assume that the requirements of Islam are similar. I don't know, I assume they are. But my lords, these needs of women should apply to all women, whether religious or atheist or pagan, and not just those with particular religious beliefs. What is so wrong with NHS Guidance Annex B is that the Equalities Act of 2010 specifically exempts hospitals and the provision of joint services where a joint service for persons of both sexes will be less effective and where there are circumstances where a person of one sex might reasonably object to a person of the opposite sex. So I say to my noble friend the Minister, the law is clear. Women have the right to be kept in hospital accommodation only with other women. Of course, one exempts intensive care units where patients are unconscious or nearly unconscious, and their medical treatment is best served by all being in the same specialist unit together. So I call on my noble friend, the Minister, to withdraw this flawed guidance on transgender patients and instruct the NHS to comply with the law of the land. Now, a brief word on Amendment 297F. I've read reports that some NHS trusts have logged women as transphobic when all they've done is request single-sex accommodation and not to be in a bed next to a man identified as a woman. There are a few reports of this. It's nothing to do with anyone on Twitter sending a rant about some hateful person next to them. It's ordinary women saying, please, can I be in a room where I don't have men next to me? It's as simple as that. And they are being recorded, I am told, as being transphobic for merely making that request. Now, I asked my noble friend in a written question what evidence he has of this, and he said, unfortunately, or fortunately, centrally, the NHS does not collect this information. It's only left to the trust. I accept that, of course, but what I want my noble friend to do is issue an instruction to all HNS trusts that it is perfectly legal for a woman to make this simple request, and she must not be stigmatised as transphobic for asking. Now, that's completely separate, my lords, and quite different from anyone who makes racist, offensive, or threatening, or genuinely hateful transphobic remarks. Now, of course, there must be absolutely no discrimination against trans people in hospital or discrimination against anybody. Our amendment makes it clear that trans people must receive equal medical treatment, but that does not mean that their gender identity wish must be accommodated over and above the wishes of people of the opposite sex. My lords, if there were a finely balanced conflict of rights here, then I would take the view that the rights of those demanding that their gender identity should take precedence over women's sex is wrong, and that the rights of women should prevail. But there is no fine balance here. The NHS, in my opinion, is breaking the Equalities Act of 2010, and I request that they obey it as soon as possible.
Did you notice his tie? This is what I love, the humour of him choosing to wear a tie in the colours that we're told are now trans rights colours. Because Lord Paddock was wearing one when they had the debate on prisons the other week, and it was all, you know, oh, he's such a great supporter of LGBTQ WTF rights. So Lord Blencathra, you know, he's perfectly willing to play with these kind of sartorial choices which convey a message within the House of Lords, which can never be captured on Hansard, but luckily we have Parliament TV, so we'd be able to find out there. So I really appreciate that. Thanks for the laugh. So I think Lord Blencathra gives really good value for money for his £300 a day that we pay each member of the House of Lords that turns up. I think that he always makes his speeches very engaging, very entertaining. He uses personal anecdote really well, talking about, you know, being prodded and poked by medical personnel and how, you know, he's a bit beyond embarrassment now, but, you know, even so, we would rather be with people of our own sex. And I think that that kind of talk is very accessible. So he's not talking about arcane political theory. He's not referencing any kind of state secrets or any knowledge that's not held by every person in the country. Every adult in this country understands exactly what he means when he talks about the privacy problems of those hospital gowns. We've all, everybody that's worn one has had the same worries about, well, you know, this is clearly not designed for dignity. So I really, really appreciate his intervention. And he always, to me, he always livens up the debate as well. So for those reasons alone, I think he is well worth writing a note of thanks to. And as we all know, he's very appreciative of these notes of thanks. So please put him on your list of thank you cards to write. So thanks for coming back to the channel to watch another update in the Keep Wards Single Sex campaign. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please give me a like. If you didn't like it, give me a dislike. Please share the video with your friends if you think they might like it, and subscribe to the channel so that you'll know when I post my next video. It's been really great to hang out with you. Take care, and I'll see you soon.